It's time to revisit an old classic. These are the only 5 whiskeys you need. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So that's right, it's time to resurrect, revisit, and update the classic challenge of the only 5 whiskeys you need. So this was a challenge that originally started on Reddit, I think a couple years ago, maybe in 2021 or 2022. I had not quite started my channel yet, and then it started circulating, and then I kind of caught up and joined the crowd. A ton of people on WhiskeyTube have done this. But what I found is that it's really a useful tool to revisit each year and kind of see how my lineup of 5 bottles has changed or stayed the same. Ultimately, these 5 categories that the challenge covers, I think really do give you a sort of well-rounded 5-bottle collection. So it's always fun to see what ends up making my list. It's especially interesting, and I think the challenge grows each year because my collection grows, and then narrowing that down to 5 can be quite difficult. So what are the categories here? We've got your cheap mixer, so something you just throw into cocktails and have no qualms about doing that. You've got your everyday drinker, something classic that you like sipping on. You've got your Friday night pour, a little more special or gonna help you kind of relax after a long week. You've got your impress your guests bottle, something that you whip out and show to the people to get them going, ooh, that's great stuff. And then finally, you've got your special occasion pour. So the most special only comes out on rare occasions when you want to celebrate. I've got my 5 selected for 2024. Let's dive in, and while we go, would love to hear in the comments below, what would your 5 be? How would you narrow down your collection to the only 5 whiskeys you need? All right, so the first one, the cheap mixer. I literally just cannot get away from the gravitational pull and the awesomeness of this bottle, and that is Wild Turkey 101. So this actually is probably the category I thought about the most in terms of what do I want to represent here? And the simple truth is I just use Wild Turkey 101 the most for cocktails and for mixing. The 101 proof gives it great backbone in any cocktail. And then also I think Wild Turkey brings its own kind of funkiness and spiciness. And you can actually taste the whiskey, taste the bourbon in pretty much any cocktail because it's got that Wild Turkey profile that most of us have come to know and love. So really cannot beat it. And then you can always see this for around $25. Often I'll see it on sale for around $20, which makes it an absolute steal. All right, next on the list is that everyday drinker. I really looked at my collection and I just looked at the bottles that have gone down the most this year, the ones that I've sipped on regularly and just can't seem to pull away from. They keep pulling me back in. The one that stands out the most though is this one. New Riff 8-year-old. So since this released, it's 100 proof, bottled in bond product, their oldest stuff that they've released. I've actually got 2 of New Riff's 8-year-old products from last year, a wheated bourbon and then a malted rye. And honestly, I think I like this one maybe even better for around $65. This is just really well-balanced, awesome bourbon. Classic flavors, brown sugar, tons of cherry on this thing, and just really, really solid. I also have the opportunity to restock on this pretty much any time because I live about 25 minutes from New Riff. So for me, that makes it a great everyday drinker because I'm never going to feel bad about emptying out a bottle. I can always go get another one. But man, this year this has surprised me and taken over that slot of the one that I tend to sip on more often than almost any other bottle. All right, the third bottle that we have to talk about is your Friday night pour, something that you sip on when you're looking to relax after a long week, something that maybe even knocks you back a little bit. You want something stronger to kind of cap off the week is at least how I see it. So for me, this whole lineup of whiskey really fits the bill, and that is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So yeah, I have a lot of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I've collected, I think, most of the batches over the last 3 years, which means I have tons to pick from when it comes to a Friday night pour. That's one of the reasons Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has sort of shifted into this category for me. Previous years, which again, this is so interesting to reflect on how the list changed. I think I probably would have had Elijah Craig Barrel Proof as impress your guests, or maybe even the first year I did it, it would have been like a special occasion pour, because at that time I hadn't collected a ton of rare whiskeys. Now that I have such a lineup of Elijah Craig at my fingertips, I really am trying to sip through it on those like Friday nights, those weekend nights where it's like, okay, I want something really, really good. I've got plenty of it, and it just tastes wonderful. It's also powerful, and at that barrel strength, it's just going to give you that extra punch that you're looking for at the end of the week. So for me, I've just found myself being like, which Elijah Craig am I going to choose today? And it's also fun to just compare all the batches and start to build up a memory bank of what each one offers in terms of flavor profiles. So Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, usually around that 12-year mark, though they took away that age statement, but also for around $75. Doesn't ultimately break the bank if you sip on it once a week or so. So really great option for Friday night pour. All right, so with the Impress Your Guest bottle, which is next, I've really stepped it up in terms of limitedness and pricing here. Ultimately though, I think this bottle's great for almost anybody who comes over and wants to try some whiskey from the hutch, and that is Michter's 10 Rye. So at a lower proof, this is 92.8 proof. I think that this is a great Impress Your Guest bottle because of the amount of flavor, how special and limited it is, but the low proof means it's not going to be unbearable for people who are more getting into the whiskey game or haven't tasted a huge variety of things. I just love the Michter's 10 Rye. It's always so desserty and rich, and I'm really happy to crack it open with people and just see them go, wow. Like, I didn't know whiskey, even especially at this low proof, could present so much flavor. Now, it's a $200 bottle, so you gotta be a little sparing with the pours you give people, but it's a great one for people to see the potential of a well-aged whiskey at some sort of approachable proof. And honestly, I've given it to guests and just watched them go, wow, that is phenomenal. And so always puts a smile on my face. It's also kind of the brand of whiskey from Michter's, the 10-year-old releases, that has really changed my mind on Michter's and made me think this is some of the best produced stuff out there, and I want to share it. All right, last but not least, our fifth bottle is the Special Occasion Pour. What shall we put in this category this year? I think one bottle really stands out for me. This one was pretty immediate for me in terms of reaction and what should I do for 2024. And that bottle is Old Fitzgerald 13 Very, Very Special. So this is the special release of Old Fitzgerald from 2024 as well. It's a $230 bottle, very, very difficult to find, only available at the distillery in Kentucky at Heaven Hill. It's like a dusty profile. This was actually distilled back in 1999, and then they kept it in a vat for about 12 years. Once it had aged, they decided the barrels were so good they wanted to put them off to the side and save them for a special occasion, which is the 25th anniversary of Old Fitz, which makes it a very fitting bottle for me to have as my special occasion pour. I did kind of debate between this and Russell's Reserve 15, which I would consider maybe the best bourbon that I own, the Russell's 15. But I went toward the Old Fitz. One, presentation-wise, it's just beautiful. Two, it's definitely more rare than the Russell's 15. And three, again, it's got that unique profile that you just can't quite taste in modern-day whiskeys very often. So for those reasons, it definitely deserves the slot of special occasion pour. With these last two bottles, again, it's just interesting to reflect that 2 years ago when I first started doing this challenge, there's no way bottles this special would have even been possible on the list. So I'm very fortunate, one, to you guys for watching, supporting the channel, giving me the motivation to continue to grow things and build my collection in all the ways you've recommended different things for me. So these two bottles are definitely special on the end here, but I love sharing the whiskey. And this Old Fitz 13 is really one I think I'm going to sip on slowly over time, really savor it, and it's going to fit so nicely for those special occasions I want to celebrate. So thank you again for all your support. It's really interesting to see how this has unfolded over the last couple of years. We've still got some classic staples, some surprising contenders for everyday sipper, and then some more special bottles that are, unique and powerful and great to have in any collection. I think if I had these 5 whiskeys alone, I'd be pretty satisfied. Now, of course, the name of the challenge is the only 5 whiskeys you need. Would I be satisfied with only having these 5 for the rest of eternity? Well, you can just look at the collection behind me and see for yourself that really probably the most interesting thing about the whiskey world is just how much variety there is. So we're not really limiting ourselves to 5 here, but it is a fun experiment. And I think it reveals a lot about how your collection is evolving over time. All right, that's enough rambling for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. If you did, hit the like button. That's what gets it out to the most people. Comment down below again, what are your 5? Would really be interested to see. And then, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Bourbon Hutch for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.